While much has been said of 21st century pandemic drug abuse, consider a narco-political empire torn by transnational cartels, ruling like warlords of old. Then again, consider the fact it now amounts to the narco megastore of the Western Hemisphere. And all of it in Mexico's once quaint border town of Tijuana. It's as close to the baseline of human depravity as it gets, with the highest drug consumption rate in Mexico. But extending a long and steady arm of LRH rehab technology is Mexico Narconon project director Laura Capaceta. She took a seriously resolute stand when her brother ran afoul of a borderland cartel. And so begins her story. As a preliminary step, she meets with Narconon project supervisor Kurt Harwood. Together they map the rehab terrain, which is mostly comprised of backwater centers under Catholic purview. And so Laura determines to present Narconon to those existing centers as a first step of implementation. By way of a first example, the Center for Addiction Recovery at La Presa is the kind of place that regularly sees the dregs of the Tijuana drug trade, both users and former dealers. The center is headed by Rodolfo Flores, who runs a faith-based rehab program. Despite his best effort, his program only achieves moderate results, and hence his immediate interest in Narconon methodology. Laura brings Narconon first step to resident users who've repeatedly attempted to crack long-term habits 10, 20, and even 80 times. And albeit they've come to believe there's no chance at all for salvage, with the first demonstration of a simple locational, they intuitively sense the presence of an actual technology. It plays on the same basic track at the Hope of Life Center, a residential clinic for drug-dependent women. They account for nearly 6 out of 10 regional users. Moreover, they habitually speak of themselves in the third person, as if observing life from a parallel dimension. Thus, the revelation when Laura implements a first round of communication drills, and thus another Tijuana center on the Narconon block. The same basic story repeats at the Path to Life Center. It's a back street operation, colloquially known as a sidewalk rehab house. Residents represent all types of usage, including opiates, methamphetamines, and an ugly mix of both. But again, there's an almost intuitive recognition factor, whereupon they too embrace the tech. Now extend that kind of action across Tijuana's entire trafficking corridor. And that, in a nutshell, is how Laura Capaceta and Narconon Mexico presented more than 200 lectures across the whole rehab network. But where all various threads of this story connect is at a chapel known as House for Finding Oneself Again. It's the central drug treatment facility for the Tijuana Diocese of the Catholic Church. Laura gains entrance through a rehab volunteer who saw the results of Narconon first step in existing centers, and who, in turn, introduces her to one Padre Lares of the Archbishop's Office for Addiction Treatment. The Padre has worked the rehab terrain for years, and he knows a godsend when he sees one. But he does not only want first step, he wants Narconon in total. Moreover, he already possesses a hillside property that will amply accommodate beds, course rooms, and saunas. He also commands an enterprising crew of former addicts who pledge to complete construction in exchange for Narconon's services. While to complete the preliminaries, he signs a Narconon license on behalf of Tijuana's Catholic Church. Yet, with the new building still months away, the Padre also enrolls his rehab personnel for immediate training. At which point, Laura Capaceta sets out to forge a delivery team to not only staff the forthcoming Narconon Rehab Center, but to also export First Step to every Catholic facility under the Padre's purview. To that end, she presents every component of the regimen. And while there's no question these are dedicated rehab professionals, one to the next, they've also had their failures. and so live with a foreboding sense that virtually every addict is doomed. But just as innately, by the end of Laura's 2-day hands-on seminar, they also all know they are now armed with the tech. And so it rolled. First to what's known as the New Vision Center, which was yet another struggling with rehab failures. But this is the new face of Tijuana drug rehab, as presented to 45 resident therapists and patients. Then again, to the Rosarito Recuperation and Rehab Center. It's right on the main Mexico-U.S. trafficking line, and there's an armed security guard for every patient. But again, this is first step implementation. And so it went. All told, the forward arm of Narconon Mexico brought more than 2,000 addicts safely through withdrawal. All of which brings this story to that fateful day when a new and fully loaded Narconon springs to life atop a Tijuana hillside. Among those in attendance are numerous resident clerics and a special envoy from the Archbishop's office to bless both staff and facilities. Also naturally in attendance is Laura herself, who graciously sets the stage for that moment when representatives from the Tijuana mayor and Baja State governor cut a ribbon. Whereupon a new and consummate Narconon is indeed born to present the full regimen for drug-free detoxification and life skill courses. And while it's a Narconon that precisely mirrors delivery patterns of Narconons world over, that is a dramatic understatement of this story. For this is a Narconon now bringing salvation to the narco-trafficking center of the Western world, and thus incontrovertible proof it can be done anywhere and everywhere.